Karen Whitmore adjusted her reading glasses and stared in horror at the security footage on her laptop screen. There, clear as day, was her own doorbell camera capturing two men in police uniforms, walking away from the Henderson house next door. Men she had personally hired from a local costume shop just 3 hours earlier. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m., exactly when she'd expected them to officially warn David Henderson about his grass being half an inch too tall. But instead of the satisfying confrontation she'd orchestrated, the fake officers were laughing. Worse yet, one was holding what appeared to be a business card and pointing directly at her kitchen window, where she'd been watching through the blinds. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Thanks for the entertainment, Karen. Check your email." Deet. Karen's perfectly manicured fingers trembled as she opened her laptop. The email contained a single video attachment titled HOA President's Creative Problem-Solving Methods. She clicked play and watched her own voice boom through her speakers. "I don't care if it's legal. These people need to learn respect. Meet me at the corner of Maple and 3rd at 2:30. You'll get your $200 after you scare them into compliance." The blood drained from her face. Henderson had recorded everything. No, she whispered, frantically calculating how this could have happened. She'd been so careful, using a burner phone, meeting the fake officers 3 blocks away from Willowbrook Estates. How had David known? Her doorbell chimed. Through the peephole, she saw David Henderson standing on her pristine welcome mat, holding a manila envelope and wearing the most satisfied smile she'd ever seen on his insufferably handsome face. "Karen," he called out cheerfully, "I believe we need to discuss your innovative approach to neighborhood governance." She cracked the door open, keeping the chain latch engaged. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't." David waved the envelope. "That's why I brought visual aids. See, the thing about hiring fake police officers is that real police officers tend to find it problematic, especially when there's video evidence." Karen's mind raced. 3 years she'd been HOA president. 3 years of maintaining property values, enforcing standards, keeping their community pristine. All of it now threatened by this newcomer who refused to understand that rules existed for a reason. "What do you want?" she hissed through the gap. "Oh, I think you know exactly what I want, Karen. But first, let's talk about how you managed to turn a simple grass height violation into a federal crime. Impersonating police officers is a felony, you know." The chain latch suddenly felt as flimsy as paper. Karen had built her reputation on being 3 steps ahead of everyone else in Willowbrook Estates. She knew every bylaw, every loophole, every pressure point that could make stubborn homeowners comply. But standing there in her own doorway, she realized she'd never planned for someone who might be 4 steps ahead of her. David tapped the envelope against his palm. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way, Karen. But either way, things are about to change around here." Karen's living room had never felt smaller. David Henderson sat across from her pristine white sofa, the manila envelope resting on her glass coffee table like a bomb waiting to explode. She'd reluctantly let him in after he'd mentioned that her neighbor Mrs. Chen was already peeking through her curtains, clearly curious about the prolonged doorstep conversation. "You set me up," Karen said, her voice barely steady. "Actually, you set yourself up. I just documented it." David leaned back, surprisingly relaxed for someone who just accused an HOA president of a felony. "See, when I moved here 6 months ago, I did my research. Talked to former residents, current homeowners, even some local contractors. Your name came up a lot, Karen, and not in good ways." She felt her carefully constructed world tilting. "I maintain standards. Property values have actually decreased 12% since you became president." David pulled out his phone and showed her a real estate analytics report. Turns out, most people don't want to live in a community where the HOA president files complaints about children's chalk drawings being visual pollution. Karen's hands clenched in her lap. That chalk incident had been necessary. Rules were rules. "So when I noticed you watching my house every morning with those binoculars," David continued, "and when Mrs. Peterson warned me that you'd probably try something dramatic, I decided to be prepared. The recording equipment was easy. The hard part was guessing you'd go straight to fake police officers instead of, say, fake building inspectors. What do you want? The words came out sharper than she intended. David opened the envelope and spread several documents across her coffee table. Security camera screenshots, transcripts of phone calls, financial records showing payments to various enforcement services over the past 2 years. Karen's stomach dropped as she recognized her own handwriting on several receipts. This is quite the operation you've been running, David said. Fake utility workers, phony city inspectors, intimidation tactics disguised as community standards. Very creative. Also very illegal. Karen stared at the evidence of her carefully orchestrated campaigns. Each document represented a victory, a moment when she'd successfully brought order to chaos, compliance to defiance. Now they looked like confessions. The thing is, Karen, I don't actually want to destroy your life. I want to fix this neighborhood. And believe it or not, I think you might be the key to doing that. She looked up sharply. What? You have organizational skills I've never seen. You know every homeowner's situation, every property's quirks, every potential problem before it becomes a crisis. You're just using your powers for evil instead of good. Despite everything, Karen felt a flutter of pride. She did know this community better than anyone. David gathered the documents back into the envelope. So here's my proposal. You resign as HOA president, effective immediately. I'll run unopposed in next month's election. But I want you as vice president. Partner, not dictator. We implement reasonable standards that actually improve property values instead of terrorizing residents. Karen's mind reeled. And if I refuse? Then I submit this evidence to the police, the state HOA regulatory board, and post the videos on the neighborhood Facebook group. His tone remained conversational, but she caught the steel underneath. Your choice. She looked around her immaculate living room, thinking of her carefully maintained reputation, her sense of purpose, her identity as the guardian of Willowbrook Estates. All of it balanced on the edge of a knife held by a man who'd outsmarted her at her own game. I need time to think, she said finally. David stood, leaving the envelope on her table. You have until tomorrow's emergency HOA meeting. I've already called it. 7 o'clock, community center. Funny thing about bylaws, Karen, when you know them as well as you do, you can use them for good instead of evil. As he reached her front door, he paused. Oh, and Karen? The fake officers? They were actually real officers. Off-duty, working security for the costume shop. They're required to report attempted bribery for impersonation. He smiled. Sleep tight. The door closed with a soft click, leaving Karen alone with the envelope and the terrifying realization that tomorrow's meeting would either mark her redemption or her complete destruction. But as she stared at the evidence of her elaborate schemes, she felt something unexpected stirring beneath her fear. Curiosity about what Willowbrook Estates might become if she channeled her talents toward building instead of controlling. The question was whether she had the courage to find out.